Oh, this is great. It looks like a lot of you. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Lowering all their hands again.
Yes.
So today, my assumption is that you have a Zoom account, whether it's a free one or a pro one, and that you want to do a little bit deeper dive. So after each section, we will stop and do questions and answers. So let's get started. So our agenda for today, first out of the gate, we'll talk about security, because of course, Zoom was built for business and enterprise use, and that's where most of their focus was. Then they opened it up to the pro small plan for small businesses, and then they threw a free version out there. And in December, if any of you heard me before, in December they had 10 million daily users. By the end of March, they had 200 million daily users. So this piece that was just an add-on all of a sudden exploded, and they had to address some security concerns. Then we're going to go through settings. We're going to talk about meetings and webinars, and then we're going to talk about optimizing your home studio. So the first thing I want to do is define the difference between a meeting and a webinar. What you are attending today is a webinar. You can raise your hand, you can type questions into the chat, you can type questions into Q&A, and that's where Kim would like them. But you're not seeing all the faces on the screen. It's not a collaborative meeting. It is strictly me presenting and then you asking the questions. The very first thing I want to tell you, if you're all signed up, maybe after the fact, is never ever sign up with Google or Facebook, not just to Zoom, but to anything. Because once that username and password for Google or Facebook have been hacked, they take an algorithm and start running against every other sign-in they have. So you always want to have a unique sign-in. It's a security piece for you. So because of the huge amount of increase in March, Zoom acknowledged the fact that they had to beef up their security for the pro and the free version. So one of the things they did right away, and I talked about this in the basic if you were on it, how when you said require password, it would take your Zoom password and drop it in there. Then everyone knew your Zoom password. They have fixed that. The default is you always have to require a password. And it makes you create one for each new meeting that you're doing. You can lock the meeting now. So once everyone is in, if you have a class and there's 12 people coming, afterwards you can lock it, no one else can get in. When you're doing a meeting, you can enable the waiting room so that each person that comes in, you can either let into the meeting or refuse. You absolutely can remove any participants you want. I think, Kim, you know how to do that. You right click up there and just say remove. And we can restrict all different type of things. I can restrict who shares their screen, who is in the chat meeting, if you can rename yourself or not, and if you can annotate on my board. So all of those things have been set up, and they also, right down here on the bottom, see where the red arrow is? They added a new tab for security. So instead of having to go out of the meeting and hit settings, you can do your work right here while you're working your meeting. So they have addressed those security issues, and they're still looking at more. So now I'm going to talk about security settings for you guys, and then we'll go into all of them. So when you go into your setting, which is on the left-hand side, when I schedule a meeting, I always start the host and the participants video for a meeting because I don't want to have them mess with it. I want them to just be in. For security, if you enable join before host, which should be disabled, it will let people hop on before you've started the meeting. You don't want to do that because nefarious people will go out and just start hitting Zoom with all different numbers to see where they can get in. So you don't want to do that. Use your personal meeting ID when scheduling a meeting. I would never do that if it's a public meeting. I would only do it if it's a closed meeting or a reoccurring meeting because I want my personal ID to be private. And I don't use my personal ID when I'm starting an instant meeting. I always let it generate a new one, so it's random. Where it says only authenticated users can join, this means that only someone who has a Zoom account can join. So if you are, again, in a closed group and you know everyone has a Zoom account, you can turn this on and know that no one from outside Zoom that's not authenticated can join your meeting. This piece right here where it says must be signed into Zoom, if this is clicked off over here, this doesn't show. But they need to be signed into their account to hop on. And then this part too, only authenticated users can join the meeting from the web client. So it hits both of these. Require a password when scheduling new meetings. You can still turn this off, but as a default, it's always on. And this was just fixed, so it is always on. Require a password for instant meetings. I would say yes, unless you were talking to someone online and say, okay, let's jump on Zoom, and you start an instant meeting. You just want them to get on. Always require a password for personal meetings. We want to do that. When you require a password, you can embed the link for the password in the URL that you send out. At that point, you don't want to post that URL publicly with the password link in it. You just want to share it via email. So when all of you registered for the event, you were then sent an email that got the link with the password in it. So you need to just be aware of those security settings and be safe. So we're going to do, oh, I see there's some questions already, Kim. So Nancy, I do not think there are any coupon codes that I know for signing up for Zoom unless you're a nonprofit. The price is very inexpensive at $14.99 a month. Does my mirror video mean the background settings? No, because I put in a backdrop, and I'll show it to you when we do the home studio. It doesn't flip the backdrop, but it flips you. So if you're doing some type of training and you say it's your right hand, when it's not mirrored, it's going to be your left hand. So you can change that. Any suggestions to make sure you have good audio? I was on a Zoom call, and at other times our voices would screech, and at other personal static sound. Yeah. So I know we all has laptops and they have basic sound, audio, audio, video. But for my webinars, I went back to the time before there was cameras and audio, and I bought an inexpensive camera, an HD camera, a Logitech one, which I'll talk about, that has audio and video. And it makes a big difference, especially if you're presenting. So the preferred method for logging in is to use your email address and create a unique password for this particular platform. The next question is, oh, someone said there's a sale on right now for $12.49 a month if you prepay for a year. I don't think that's just now. I think that's always, all platforms. Always. Yeah, if you pay for a year, they always give you a discount. So that's absolutely, like I said, $15 a month is not hard to handle. For sending out the Zoom link to attendees, I don't send the link either. I get it, no password. I don't understand the question. Part I don't understand is I get it, no password, but no link either. So when you create a meeting and say require a password and have the settings so it says URL, it will show you that link, and I'll show it to you in a little bit. So I'm going to put that one on hold.
What I can do, if you don't mind, Virginia, I can allow Nancy to chat real quick and ask that question. You think we're good?
I am addressing this later on, so let's put that one on hold.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Are there any other security questions?
No, I don't. Nope. I think we're good.
Okay. So we're moving on. So we're going back to on your left-hand side where it is settings, and we're going to look at all of the settings individually. I already talked about the host, participant, and video in meetings. You know how it is, someone always can't get their audio and video started. So if you put that it's supposed to be on when they jump in, it takes them one step further that you don't have to mess with them. Also, you want audio to be both telephone and computer audio so that if someone calls in, it's not an issue whatsoever. So that should be on right here for both. We talked about join before host. You don't want to do that. It's a security issue. Again, I don't use my personal ID because I want it to be random. I don't want someone to get my personal ID. So both of those are off. Now we're scrolling, going to a new slide, but we're actually scrolling down on a web page. So I jumped down to show you users for the moment. You can put extra users in here. And as you see, I'm the one that's licensed for 500 webinar. David is a basic member. So you can put your team members in here only if you want them to be able to actually host an event. Do you want to pay for a license? So that they need to be concurrent. So if I had two things, if I was doing a webinar and David was doing a webinar, we would need 2 licenses. Now I can set up a webinar and make David a co-host without paying for that. And just like Kim made me a co-host from hers and be able to do what I need to do. So that's the difference between licensed and basic. And you can put as many people in here as you want, as long as they're basic, so you can use them to assign them to things. So when you add a user, I should probably go back. Right up here in the corner, can you see my cursor, Kim? Good.
Yes.
Okay, so you click add a user, and this pops up. Type in their email address. Of course, they immediately default to license, and if you hit add, what happens is they take you right to the payment page. Because in a pro version, you can have up to 9 extra licenses. Or you can have 2. So you have to click back to basic. And if you have an extra webinar and you want them to do webinars, you have to click these features. You can fill in the department, the job title, and location. This is much for a business or an enterprise piece. And click add. And then, oops, I want to go back to the previous screen. Then they'll appear in this drop down. They'll appear in pending first because you send them invitation and they have to accept it. So don't freak out. If you set them up and you don't see them here under users, they're going to be under pending. So now we're sliding down that settings page again. Mute participants upon entry. So if you're doing a meeting and you do not want people to talk, even though I said you just to set it that everyone's audios work, their audio can work, but they can be muted. So you have control over them. Upcoming meeting reminders is really something if you're using the desktop client. Now, I almost exclusively use the web client, but it will prompt you to download the desktop client so you can work in the desktop client. I just don't feel it's necessary. And if that's true, then it pops up. My reminders come from my Outlook reminders. So I'm going to talk about end-to-end encryption. You can enable this for third-party encryption if that's what you need. There's been pushback on whether Zoom is encrypted from end to end. It is and it isn't. So when you use a platform like WhatsApp and it says it's encrypted from end to end, it means what you text is what goes to the other person and it doesn't live on their server, or it's encrypted on their server. For Zoom, it's encrypted at my end, it's encrypted at your end, but it's not encrypted on their platform. So if that's what you want, then you have to put in a third party. So it's probably nothing you will use, but it is there. Chat, allow participants to chat. I think it's very healthy to have chat open and let people have comments back and forth. We are not using it at this point. But in a meeting, it's great. You can go to one-to-one or one-to-all. When I do networking events, I let all the people, just like we are at a regular networking event and we pass our cards, the chat will be open and each person can put in their information and then you can send that to everyone. So you're still getting the information. So chat is a very useful tool. I don't do auto-save chats. I just save them at the end. It creates a text file for me then to push forward. I play sound when participants join or leave. I think that's distracting, but that's up to you, how you want to do it. File transfer should always be shut off. I know it's great if you want someone to share a file and it's a closed group, and you can do that. But file transfer is one of those places where someone can put a file on there for everyone to share, and it can have a virus. So I do not use that. I send afterwards. You can add a tab to send feedback to Zoom or display the experience survey at the end. If I have an issue with Zoom, I'll send it back. I don't think my participants need to do that. And if they have a Zoom account, they can list anything in their account. A co-host, I always allow to add co-host because if something's going on, I want to be able to on the fly add a co-host or take someone out of being co-host. Polling, when I do webinars, I do polls and then everyone can see what's going on online. I went to look at my polls this morning and realized that we're coming from Kim's account where the polls aren't. The polls are in my account. So forgive me for not getting to you ahead of time on that, Kim. The polls are fun. You put in the questions, you start it, everyone answers it. It comes up on the screen so everyone can see what others are doing. And it's a great way to add to interaction on a webinar. Always show meeting control bar. So when you roll over your control bar, it hides itself or goes back down. If that bothers you, you can set it to be static. I don't mind it going out of the way at all. Show Zoom windows during screen share. So I have, this is set off, but I have mine up so that I can see Kim. It's absolutely you, how you want to set that when you're doing it. Screen sharing. In this particular instance, screen sharing would be for only the host and the co-host. If I'm in a networking meeting, I may say, yes, people can share their screen because then they can bring something up to share with a group. Screen sharing is a great function as long as you can manage it. I can disable the screen share for users or enable it if I want people to be interactive. The annotation bar is very cool. So on mine, and I have it disabled for use, if disabled for all of you, I can go up and click the annotation bar. And when I do that, I have some options. I can type a message to you on here. I can also decide that I want to circle something that's going on here. I also can add an arrow on any of the places. So, and then I can erase or undo each thing and take them off, because if you don't take them off, you should know that they're going to be there on the next slide because it's just on this. You can clear, you can save. It's a great tool to use when you're doing a webinar. Whiteboard. I talked about this in my last meeting. I spent about an hour trying to get the whiteboard to work and couldn't do it, so I can't talk to that at this point. I don't know if it was because I needed people on to see the whiteboard, but I was trying to do it and I couldn't make it work. If you are interested in the whiteboard, excuse me, there are tutorials on Zoom which are very good, and I'd be happy to try it with you to see how it works. Remote control. So for me, it's great to use remote control if you're helping someone get set up, if you know that there's going to be problems, or you're having a one-on-one meeting and you need to help someone do something. That way they can allow remote control and you can work together on something. Nonverbal feedback is you should have, and I don't know how you set yours up, so I can't say that. If there's nonverbal feedback is turned on, then you can click icons that appear in the panel besides your show of hands. So I don't know if that's in yours or how you set it up, Kim, but that is an option. Allow removed participants to rejoin. So I haven't shut it off because I'm pretty sure if I've kicked you out of the room, I don't want you back.
Okay, I think I have.
So if each of you hover over your name, do you have an option besides raise your hand? I see a hand raised, so that's only one. So you only get the hand is what you're telling us.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Allow participants to rename themselves. So if you dial in on your phone, it'll say iPhone S10. You are allowed to then, in your screen, change your name. So so there's one here that's a telephone number. You could right-click under More and change your name. And so that's great if you want to know who's on the call. Breakout rooms are great if you're teaching a class. They're very easy to set up, and there's different pieces which we're going to talk about a little later about whether you do it manually or automatically. But if you set up breakout rooms and you're teaching, let's say 12 people, and you want to stop and move 4 people to 3 different breakout rooms, you can do that and let them do that. Or you as the host and the co-host can step into a breakout room, have a discussion, and come back to the class. So those are very easy to use, very easy to do, and it's wonderful. Here's some remote support, so you can provide remote support to an individual one-on-one. I have not used closed captioning. To do that, you have to have a third-party plugin, and if it's your model, I'm sure Zoom will help you with what those plugins are. The same with sign language interpretation. You have to put a third-party plugin so that can happen. And I do not let anyone control my camera. That's just not necessary. Group HD video. So unless your meeting or your webinar is in need of having that HD video, I have it shut off because it then makes the bandwidth go up exponentially. And bandwidth in general has gone up exponentially because so many people are on the internet working from home. Virtual background, of course, is yes, and I'm going to show you how to use those in the end when we're talking about our optimizing our own rooms. So I will identify guest participants in a webinar if it's someone that's closed and I know who's supposed to be there, so I can see who's new. I allow auto answer in the group chat. I only show default email when sending emails, and I use the Outlook HTML plugin because that's how I like my mail to go out. Users can select their own audio and in stereo selections on their desktop. It's for their user experience. I do not need to control that. So both of these I have set on. Waiting room is great. You can put the waiting room on. It puts all participants in there, and then you admit them one at a time. It takes a little more work when you're doing that because you have to pay attention to who's coming in and then announce them, which is okay. But I think it's a great tool, and you can customize that waiting room with your logo, title, and description. I'm going to show you that a little further on. Show the join from your browser link, so when you get that email, you can click right on there and get right into the Zoom room without having to copy or paste or do anything. I allow live streaming of meetings to Facebook and YouTube, so I could drop right on mine and send it right to live to Facebook or YouTube. Now, I can't do that as a co-host. Kim would have to do that as the host, but it's a great way to, if you have a networking meeting and your networking meeting has a Facebook page, is to put it right up there. And it's great. You're not sharing the link, you're just sharing the video and the sound.
And Virginia, excuse me, that's being played in real time, correct? On Facebook, if we click share, it's going to be on Facebook.
There is latency, okay, because it's got to convert it and upload it. But real time, yes, in terms of there's that latency piece. So there's a drag. Gotcha. I can say hello here. If I have it open on my other screen, then it's going to say hello. So it's real time, yes, but there's a latency piece. So I did put the logo and piece in here. This is the waiting room. You can put your logo in. You can put a message here. The waiting ID is here, and then a text message here. So you can customize it however you want. So then there's email notification. So when a cloud recording is available is on, I always record mine directly to my desktop because then I don't have to download them. Then I pop up that recording, I cut off the beginning part because there was the waiting time to get rid of it, and then I will upload it. When attendees join a meeting before host, if you have that turned on, and let's say it's like 5 minutes to when your meeting is going to be, you will see in your email that people are waiting for you. It's a great reminder. If you get distracted or aren't early, I always try to start my meetings 10 to 15 minutes early, put music on, and wait for people so that I'm on time. It will send an email when a meeting is canceled. I think that's important. When an alternate host is set or removed from a meeting, it sends an email. When someone is scheduled as a meeting host, and when it's permanent, the cloud is permanent deleted. I think this is really, if you have a group of people working in there, you want to know if something is happening. Then the invitation, you can choose your language. I have English, and you can send yourself a preview of that invitation so you can see what it says. You can assign special privileges to schedule a meeting. So earlier you saw that David and Jennifer were in there. I can assign to them that they can create the schedule. They can go in and create a webinar on my behalf. They don't have to be a licensed person, but they can manage the account. Down here under integration authentication, there are 2 key codes that you would use when you're integrating with third-party systems.
Okay, we have some questions, so let me know when you're ready.
We're not quite there yet. Hang on, let me look to see how far we are away from Q&A. I think we're close. Yeah, 2 more slides. Do you want to wait?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. We can wait.
So down here for webinars, you have schedule. This is your left-hand column where above it has your picture and stuff. Down here under webinar settings, this is where if you're requiring registration, you can put a banner up, you can put your logo up, and you can choose your colors. If you brand it down here in the main settings under account management, when you create your webinar, it will pull it in. Now, if you've already created your webinar, it's not going to pull it in. You have to do it locally or on that webinar. Down below that, here are all the different emails that are sent out or you can send out, and you can send yourself a pre-mail and then edit the text. So if you don't like their default vernacular, you absolutely can change it. You can put a link for expired webinar on here and it will send it out. Right here, post attendee URL. So this is, oh, let me go back. I'm pointing and sometimes I click my mouse, forgive me. On all my webinars, my post attendee webinar does not send it back to Zoom. It sends it to a page on my website that thanks you for coming to the webinar, and if you have any questions, to contact me, and sends those people directly to my site. So if you're having webinars or meetings, this will push traffic directly back to your site, and you should change that globally. Registration settings, automatic approval is fine for me. And that's the way I have it let it set. If you want to manually approve everyone, that is your choice. The email settings, again, you can make edits all the way up here. So if you are going to charge a registration fee, you have to click charge a registration fee, and then it gives you the ability to connect to your PayPal account. So this platform allows for free registration and charged registration. In the very bottom of webinars, I showed you that before, allow hosts to stream live. I remove Workplace by Facebook because if it's there, it gets confused where it's going to Facebook, and you want it to go to your Facebook page that you choose at the time. Here we are, Kim.
All right. When setting up an account, there was an issue with the microphone. Can you suggest a fix?
So down in the bottom of your bar, you should be able to click and choose which audio you're using. So if your laptop or desktop is not giving you the audio you want, you can buy a microphone and then choose to use it for Zoom. So if you hover over down in the bottom corner where your audio is, there should be an arrow right next to it. Do you see, when I pull up my bar, do you see it, Kim, or do you just see the slide?
I just see the slide.
Okay, so it says select a microphone, select a speaker you can test. So that arrow next to the mute or unmute on the audio on the far left side of your taskbar for Zoom gives you the ability to change. So if you're having a problem with your audio, you can plug in a speaker and use it that way. Now my camera has a speaker and I use for both. The same thing if you hover over video, you can choose using your laptop camera, desktop camera, or a plug-in camera.
All right, next question. It appears that your setting pages are different than the free versions, layout and obviously functions only available with paid version.
So it could be two things. Because I paid for webinar, it's incorporating a whole bunch of other items. You need to deal with what's in your account and set the settings up that you have available for you.
Okay, can you easily make setting adjustments while on the call without the Zoom attendees seeing it?
Yes, so you can't see my bar when I'm making, and when I showed you back on that first security page where there's that security button with, you can click on that and make changes on the fly.
Yep. Is the annotation feature only available on webinars, or can you use it in a meeting? You can use it in a meeting.
I'm sure you can use it in a meeting. It needs to be set to be on in your basic settings. So it becomes on your bar, it becomes a little pen that says Antonate.
Yeah. Yeah, it is available both in meetings too. We use it a lot on our meetings. So yeah. Let's see. How many of these settings are set by default? You kind of went through those.
Actually, there were none set by default originally. Zoom has changed that so that the security ones are set. You need to go through your settings and set them.
Mm-hmm. I found how to see most of what you're showing by clicking View Advanced Features through the free version, though the free version does not show some of the settings.
Right, because some of them were webinar settings, and I have the webinar plugin that I've paid for.
There's a question around the don't enable join before host, but confused when you say enable when attendees join before host. What is the difference?
So if you're putting them in a waiting room, it puts them in a room where you can admit them. If it's if they can join before host, it means they're already just waiting for you. So if I am someone who's going on the web nefariously and just throwing out numbers, it's going to open up Zoom rooms. And I can check to see if I can join. So if I've joined before the host, I'm on it. The host comes on, opens it up. I'm there.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions, Kim?
Yes, I do. I'm curious. I'm not always seeing the questions other participants type in the Q&A section. Am I supposed to see all questions posted, or does just the host see the questions?
So it depends how you set it up again. And I did not set this one up, so I don't know. I guess you could ask for a show of hands. Does everyone see the chat and all the chat? You're not going to see the questions because Kim asked everyone to put the questions in the Q&A, and only Kim sees that, and I, the co-host.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone should be able to see chat, but we're just not using chat.
Right. You can chat amongst yourselves.
Yes. Okay, can you use another PayPal?
Can you use a different thing besides PayPal?
Yes.
As far as I know, PayPal is the only option that's in there. That would be a question you could ask of Zoom. I assume they're going to have to make some changes with so many more users, but PayPal is the choice you get when you click that button.
Yeah. You started to talk about background and mirroring. Can you please repeat that?
I'm going to repeat that in the end when we optimize our rooms.
In a webinar, can hosts see the participants?
No, because you don't want to see them all. You're giving a presentation.
Right. Sometimes I see. Okay, I think that's good for now. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, so then we're moving on. Again, someone asked me to put this earlier to make sure everyone understood the difference between a meeting and a webinar. A meeting is collaborative, see all the different faces on the screen, and a webinar is a presentation. So we're going to talk about scheduling a meeting. So we click meetings, we click schedule a new meeting. Oh, I know what I was going to show here. I apologize. This is the online version, which most of you probably see, and this is how I work mine. I just go online to do it. If you choose, you can have the desktop version, but to me it has less options. It just shows what's scheduled, what's recorded, and what's coming up. So I'm going to go back one time. So this is what it looks like online. This is what it looks like if you're using the desktop client. So we're going to talk a little about host, co-hosts, and alternate hosts. These apply to both meetings and webinars. If I'm the host, I'm the one who scheduled it, unless I've been given someone permission to do that. And there can be only one person who owns the meeting. A co-host then shares most of the controls the co-host has and can administer. So if I had started the meeting and let Kim be co-host, she could still do Q&A, look at the participants, and do the chat, depending on how you're running your meeting. An alternate host, and in order to do an alternate host, you have to have an alternate license, because then they can set up a meeting, host a meeting, and do other things. So hosts and co-hosts can be used in the free version and in the pro version without a secondary license. If you want someone else to host webinars and schedule them, you have to pay for another license, and you can have an alternate host. So I went a little deeper here. If up by your name, when we have it, we have a little more button, and that more button allows us to do different things. I can take a regular panelist or a regular attendee and put them up to co-host so they can help manage the webinar. So they can start the live stream. They can do a lot of different things. What a co-host can't do is start the meeting. If you are the host and you don't have an alternate host, you are the only one who can go in and start it. So if something happened to Kim this morning, she didn't get to her office, she would have to, someone else would need to start the meeting. That couldn't happen. I could not have done that. So it's just a function of how they've defined how you use the program. So I'm going to show you here how to change, when you're hosting or a meeting, how to change a setting. So here on the bottom, you see the toolbar. And next to the participant, we see the word more. This is the list that comes up for me. I can chat with them individually. I can ask them to start their video. I can make them a host. Again, that's a whole issue. I can make them a co-host. I can allow them to record. I can rename them. I can put them in a waiting room, or I can kick them out. So this is all done from this more button right here, and I can mute and unmute them. Both Kim and I have that ability. So now we're going to talk a little bit about breakout rooms. So you have to set up breakout rooms as you're creating the webinar and tell them that that's what you want. So you need to click it, and so it's on there, and here's where it's going to be on your panel, breakout rooms. Now, if you're working ahead of time and you're having a class, you know the 12 people, you know who you want in the room, then you're going to manually choose the participants to go in that room. Otherwise, you can just let Zoom automatically put people, it'll come up and say breakout room, you'll say put 3 people in it, and it will grab 3 and stick them in that room. So breakout rooms are great if you're doing a class and you want people to go into that room and do something, and then you can stop the breakout rooms and bring everyone back to what you're doing. Kim, have you used this feature?
I have not used that feature.
It's a great feature, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a separate, an additional fee, correct? To use breakout rooms or no?
You should have it in the pro version.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
not a webinar function, it's a meeting function. I don't know if it's in the free version. I haven't been on the free version for so long. Who has the free version? Raise your hand and wait. And does it have the ability for you to do the breakout rooms?
Yeah.
So I'm rephrasing the question. Does it have the ability for you to assign breakout rooms in free? Does anyone know? Not sure.
I don't think it does.
Well, I think they were answering the first part of the question
Right.
before I got to the second part of the question, so I apologize for that. So what a participant sees on a Zoom desktop, you see less than me, and you'll only see the things I have allowed you to do. So you can mute and unmute yourself, and here's that little up arrow where you would click, and it would show you the options that you would get to where there's settings and choosing your audio. Here is where you can start or stop your video. And when you click this up arrow to the left of it, you can choose which camera you want to use. You can do your video settings, and this is where you're going to do your virtual background, which again, I'm getting to an example at the end. It'll show you how many participants. So if you're in a webinar and you're wondering how many people are there with you, you should be able to see how many people are joined. Here is chat. This is, you click that button, the chat box will come up to the right of your screen, and you can chat either one-to-one particular person or to the host or to all the panelists. This is where you can share your screen. You click on that and it'll pop up a box that asks you, if you have multiple screens, which one you want to share, and you choose that, and then your screen is the one that is visible. If the host has allowed you to record the webinar, you would have a record button that you could click. And if the host has allowed you to do different reactions, you would have a reaction button. Does anyone have a reaction button on theirs? Show of hands. I guess that's a no. That's something that needs to be set up when you're setting up the event. So a lot of people will say, I only see myself. Up in the upper right-hand corner, my arrow there right here, when you're in a meeting, you can change your view. You can have full screen, which would give you all the participants in a meeting. You could have active speakers so that when someone speaks, it goes to their video and automatically takes you there. Or I, as the host or the co-host, if I'm in a network meeting and there's a speaker, can make that person the active speaker and then no one else is going to come up. This is gallery view. You can do it mini, so you can choose to make it small. And you can hide anyone who does not have their video on. So anyone who has that little cutout or just their phone number on, you can hide them because you don't want people to look at them. We're showing the chat feature. Here to the right, you can see there's a Zoom webinar chat. This one you choose at the bottom to click to all panelists, an individual person, and it will go. You'll type your message in. If you don't want everyone to see it, you can come just to the host. If you want to put it in the box for everyone to see, so because some people share their how it's worked for them, and which is great. I like collaboration, but I don't monitor it when I'm doing a webinar. I monitor the Q&A. We're going to talk about waiting rooms again. You go into a waiting room and it says, please wait while the host will let you in soon. I grabbed this. I don't know who Molly Parker is, but she put her graphic up on the web and I borrowed it. And you just wait there until you're admitted. So you've gotten into the room and you're waiting. It's not just spinning, because if you don't give them a waiting room or allow them to join before host, which you don't want to do, then they just get that spinning wheel of death and they don't know what's going on. And that could cause lower participation. If it's a spotlight video, I touched on that earlier. If there's a meeting and I want someone to have the spotlight, and if other people talk, not to interrupt her, I will promote her to spotlight video so that she can talk. And then when she's done, I can cancel and let people in a meeting start to speak again. I talked a little bit about this, the post URL attendee link down here at the bottom. This is where you want to put your main web page, or you want to do a landing page if you're doing a specific webinar where you're selling something, you want to force people to a call to action, then this is where you want to do it. And you want to change this URL right here to where you want it to go. You can set a global one, which I have set. And if I need an individual one, then I will go into that particular webinar and set it. Launching polls during event. So it comes up on my tab as polling. You set it ahead of time. You click poll, you choose that poll, it comes up, everyone, you let it run for so, it'll tell you if everyone has voted, and then you can share those on the screen. So everyone gets to see what the answers were, and then you can discuss that. Okay, now we're to Q&A for webinars and meetings.
All right, let's see. let's see, do you have a side-by-side, oh, that's not, do you have a side-by-side comparison chart of free versus pro version?
They have that on their website.
Yeah, it's on their website. You
Yep.
can get that.
I actually show that in the basic one, but not in this one.
Normally on a webinar, I see an option to mute or unmute. On this one today, there is not that option available. Did you just mute everyone from your settings?
So I did not set this one up, but yes, if you, it's a setting that you can do. And I believe that you have the ability to mute and unmute them. In a meeting, they can mute and unmute themselves. It has to do with your settings, yes.
Yeah, I think on the webinar, I can click on someone's name and allow them to talk. I think it's automatic that it's muted when they come on. Yeah. I am only seeing chat, raise hand, and Q&A on the toolbar when I am in the webinar.
That's the way it was set up.
I can't see the mute, share screen, record, reaction buttons. Is this normal in a webinar?
Yes.
Set up. I don't see myself as a participant or on your webinar here, nor anyone else. So I cannot see a reaction button. Okay. We talked about all those. Are participants allowed to do private messages? They can chat.
Yes, in the chat, you can choose to the host, to all panelists, or an individual person.
Yeah. Can you record it? Yes, you can record a webinar and save it. You mentioned that. Is there a way to schedule the meetings you're going to attend on your free Zoom account?
No, you should be able to add them to your calendar. When you schedule that meeting, and that was in the original one, the basics, when you schedule a meeting, once it's scheduled, it shows you add to Google, add to Outlook, add to Yahoo Calendar. Or you can, with a plugin in your Outlook calendar, you can schedule it directly from your calendar and it will be on there.
Okay. I think that's it on this set of questions. There were a lot of repeat ones, so.
That's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
So optimizing your home studio. I know you guys have a lot of questions about this. So during this part, I'm going to unshare my screen so that I can show you some things here. But one of the things you have to think about is a good camera. Yes, there's a camera on your laptop, but it makes a difference in what you're seeing. I had a lot of problems when I first started with both of my laptops because the camera was not giving me what I want. And when I would sit in front of a green screen and talk, all I could see was the green halo around my hair when I put up a virtual background, and it distracted me because the camera was not good enough and it didn't give the feedback. So cameras run up to like $300. This particular one I purchased before we were all locked down. It's at Best Buy. It's $69. It has sound and video, and I believe that it gives a good presentation and you can all hear me okay. So visual is important. The next thing I have to tell you is lighting and sound. So you can do anything you want. You can have the audio be part of your camera. You can have, if you're happy with the camera on your laptop, you can just plug in a different audio device. You can buy inexpensive lights to make you look better. So when I first started, my green screen hung in front of my closet and I'd have to move everything because I was only doing them on occasion. Well, that got to be tedious. So I took my green screen and hung it behind me, behind my desk, and I put lights on the back side of my desk so it looks okay. I'll show you that in just a minute. And you can do an instant meeting and see what you look like. You can have someone come on and say, yes, I hear you okay, or it looks okay. People are happy to do that. and to set your settings in Zoom so it's choosing your new pieces. So when you're in Zoom, we're going to go back to this. Down next to your mute button, select a microphone. This is not my setup. I stole the picture from the web, but it says select a microphone. So you can use your built-in microphone. You can use, it's very interesting because this is the webcam I have, the HD Pro Webcam 920. You can choose that for your microphone, and it will all do that. So you have the choice, and you have audio options. This is where you set your audio. Then right here is where you set your video, and choose your camera, and then your video settings, which is where we'll go into in a minute when it's setting up your virtual background. So to get a good virtual background, you really need to have a green screen, a blue screen, or a solid color behind you so that the camera knows what to do. It understands it's supposed to get rid of that big color behind you. And whatever big color you have behind you, you can't wear that color, or it's going to not show. Or you've all seen the people who have the virtual backgrounds, but every time they move, they come in and out of focus and they're doing stuff. So yeah, you want to make sure what it is you want for your presentation and what you want people to see. Right here in the right-hand corner is the piece that I did. I put it on my ceiling so that my green screen pulls behind me. I'm going to show you that. And then I can just push it out of the way to the side and it's off. So I don't have to do anything. It works well for me because I do it a lot. Now, when what am I going to do next? Oh, let's go back. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I want to make sure, can everyone see me? So this is my raise of hands. This is my virtual background. So I can change on the fly my virtual background. Okay, this is my happy hour background. This is my alternate office background. So here, you guys see the clock backwards, right? I'm going to lower the hands. How many see? Lower everyone's hand. Who sees it backwards, the time? Is it backwards to you? Yep. Okay. So when I go down to my video virtual background, right below that, and I'm sorry you can't see that, there's a box that says I have a green screen, and you can pick the color of your green screen, and it says mirror my video. You can check either of those on how you want to see that. I am now going to show you my, oh, let me turn it off so you can see my green screen. I'm going to choose none. So this is my green screen that hangs behind me, and it just pulls back and forth out of the way. And it knows what color because you've told it what color it is to get rid of it. So if you choose a background and it comes up and it says, and you say, I have a green screen, then it will ask you what color it's going to be. And you can choose the color so it knows which color to pull out of the screen behind you. So you guys see Kim on the screen now. She's in her home office, which is fine. But if she put a virtual background on, it would have problems because there's so many different colors back there. And even here in her upper side, there's a dark green and a light green. It would get confused. My screen had a little bit of shading, but not a lot. And it is able to, and you can see my fan is on because it's hot in here. The very corner of it was blowing in the wind on the side. So you guys have to decide what the visual is that you want for your background and what you want people to see. I also have lighting. So my lights are on, so the light is coming from me. I've been working very hard trying to keep the glare off my glasses, and I think I have it to almost where I'm happy with it. So that the light is not shining from either side or coming from the back and you just get this dark face. Natural light is the best, so if you have a big window you can sit in front of, that's wonderful. But it's very inexpensive to choose these, have them sent to your office, and it's great. You can, in order to set a virtual background, when you go in there, if you have a picture you want to use, it needs to be high res, you just add it to it. When you say choose virtual background, there is a button that says add, and you can add any photograph you want. So you can have multiple choices.
So Virginia, we have a couple of questions on this.
Sure.
If I can go ahead and interject. Is there a selection of virtual backgrounds to select from, and how do I add more or customize?
Right, so there's two. I think you get the Golden Gate Bridge and you get some kind of a green beachy scene. Those are the two basic ones that are in there. You need to get a high-res picture. I have a subscription to iStock Photo. That's where I get mine. There's some other places like Pixabay that are free. You can find one. Once you've downloaded it your computer, then you go in to choose a virtual background, and there's a button right above the pictures that says add. You click that, just like anything else. You go to the spot where it is on your computer and add it, and then it is there for you to choose.
Okay, that was another question. Where did you get yours, and how can they be saved? So, in the free version, there's a solid black background and 3 different images. I can't use any because I don't have a green screen. Is there a way to change the solid black to green and then use a different background image? Or do you have to buy the green screen?
So the solid black means none. It should say none on that. What it means is you're going to get the background that's behind you. If you have a sheet, a great big sheet that's all green or all blue or all one color, you can hang it behind you. Say you have a green screen, choose the color and see how it looks. But you need to have a solid color. White doesn't work because it just doesn't know what to do with it.
Okay. Do you need the green screen for a high-res photo?
Yeah, the issue is not the high-res photo, it's how the camera knows how to erase the color behind it and put it in. The high-res photo just means it's looking okay here and not blurry. Because if you take a photo, and just like any time you take a photo that isn't big enough and it increases the size, it pixelates it.
Yeah. Okay. Someone wants to know the name of the company you mentioned, but they couldn't hear what you said, that you purchased these.
iStock Photo is a place where you can purchase individuals. I have a subscription because I use it so much for my clients and myself. Pixabay is a free service. So if you just Google free online graphics or photos, you should be able to find a couple different places.
Okay. Yesterday I heard you can Google free Zoom for virtual background. The presenter brought up Simpson's living room and it was high res. So,
there you go.
There you go.
I'm sure there's a bunch of those have popped up. Yep.
Yeah. Where are the lighting and sound settings? I don't see them in the free version. Or I just don't see where to set them.
So they're on the bottom bar next to your audio. That's where you do your settings. On the bottom left-hand corner, you have your audio mic, and you have.
And just a question that I have okay.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry.
That's where you set that up. That's where you set your audio settings up, and you test your audio and your video when it's going.
Yeah. And I will just add, and Virginia, you can elaborate on this. I know she talked about this, but really knowing your background prior to and practicing that in the lighting is really important. As many Zoom calls that I've been on, I've seen interesting backgrounds. The lighting has been very poor for a lot of them. So because you're able to see yourself, I would really recommend that you spend some time making sure it's good.
Right. You can create an instant meeting. No one is there but you, right? You can invite someone into that instant meeting and ask what their experience is so you know what's happening on the other end. And then you're ready for whatever professional image you want to portray, because you know, you've seen it on the news, these people working at home, you have seen it on the meetings that you're on. You're in this really dark room and a dark face, and it takes away the interaction that you're really trying to get.
Mm-hmm. In a meeting, if you want to turn off the video, can you use a photo instead of having the black screen?
So yes, that was in the basic ones. When you set up your account, there's a place to put a profile picture, and that's what will come up then.
Okay. 2 more and then we'll go on. Can you record from Create Instant Meeting?
You know, I would say yes, but I don't remember in an instant meeting having looked at that. That was not one of the pieces I was looking for, but I would say yes, if you are allowing recording, you should be able to record it from an instant meeting. And we're at the end. We're at the very end, Kim, so we can finish all the questions.
All the questions, okay. Yeah. I have no experience with Zoom. Can you please explain where in the left side all of this setup information is at, where all of this setup information is at?
So when you're online in your account, on the left-hand side, it tells you, you can click on any of those and do your settings. If you're in a Zoom meeting like this, in an instant meeting, when you roll over your bar at the bottom, or if it's static, you want to click that up arrow next to the microphone or the video camera to do settings in a meeting.
Okay. And I think the rest of these are just around the recording. Someone said they missed a beginner class. It was not recorded, but we will be doing another one again. Will this recording be available after this presentation? So I did set this to record in the cloud. So we will get that uploaded. And
so it's going to be available on your site, and it will also be available on my YouTube station, because I'm also recording it. I will edit it and upload it. So there's a couple places you guys can find it. I also will be providing the slides in a PDF form to Kim, and she can email those out to you.
To all the participants,
Yeah.
Can you, sorry to ask this again, can you record a webinar and save it to your desktop without an audience?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So if you want to do a presentation, you can do the presentation, record it, and upload it. If you want to have a conversation or an interview, so let's say Kim and I just wanted to talk about her company and what she does, you know, what the nonprofit does for people, and do an interview, I could take that, record it, and upload it to my YouTube channel. It doesn't have to be pushed live at the time. You can use this platform as a way to create content.
Right. A question about chat.
So you cut out
in the chat. The only options are all attendees. Was the private? Oh, this is a chat question. In the chat, the only options are panelist or panelist and all attendees.
So that was a setting when you, that was a setting when you set it up that just didn't get checked. Yeah.
So we'll hold on, let's see here. Max number of participants on Zoom meeting or on a Zoom webinar.
So the basic package for $40 a month.
I know our Zoom webinar, we have 100. Yeah, go ahead.
And my Zoom webinar, I pay for the 500. So it's a pay for the number of people that you want on it. But it's a monthly fee. So if you have something big coming up, you can go bigger and then come back down.
And I know, Virginia, when we signed up, I did not see the option for 500. They don't make it easy to see that. I didn't see what the price was. So
I don't remember the price, but we can go offline afterwards and I can show you that if you want to make that change. Yep.
Yeah. I do not have a participants button on my toolbar. Is this because we are in a webinar?
Yeah. Kim and I get to see who's here. You do not.
Yeah. I think we covered the background. There's a number of people saying thank you. Someone said they wish they had signed up for Pro before taking this. In the general settings, what does it mean when it says, when closed, minimize window to notifications area instead of taskbar?
In the general, I'm going to read this question again so I make
Okay,
sure
yeah.
I understand it. What does it mean when it says, when closed, minimize window to notification area instead of taskbar? You know, I have to look, it's out of context for me, so I'm not sure where that's coming in. Bernice, if you send me an email, I will answer that.
We can allow her to talk to if we want to. Maybe she can.
Yeah, but I don't know where the setting piece is, and neither of us can.
Setting is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Max number, I think we've answered. I think. Someone, I got a notice that free accounts cannot use dial-in audio. You know if that is still the case?
I believe that's not the case, but again, they're making so many changes and upgrades, I would have to check on that. It's in the settings that we're in the very first portion of the settings for where you say you can allow both. So you should go back and look at that first to see that it's turned on, and then that's where I would check.
Okay. Someone just said, I just got that notice now too, logged into my free Zoom account. So,
what notice was that?
Yeah, what are you referring to, the general settings notice, Nancy? If you can just let us know what notice that is. In the meantime, Virginia, your top 5 lessons learned. I'm not sure what that means, Joanne. You can elaborate on that. Are you asking?
I will talk, if you got a message today that they changed a setting in Zoom, they are working very diligently because of their growth to make sure that the free and the pro version are secure. And it's very possible there's been some issues with people using their phones to get into meetings when they lock down the desktop. So I don't know, and I'd have to check on that. I did not get a notice today from Zoom about that.
Of a dial-in.
Yes.
You see that one? Yeah.
So my top 5 lessons, because it's not my first month, just so you know, go back to how you are perceived and how you want to be perceived. How do you look when you're on here? How do you want people to see you when you're on here? Is your lighting good? Is your sound good? Because there's nothing more distracting than watching someone fade in and out of the background because I'm going to use a virtual background, but they don't have a green screen. Or the fact that the lighting is coming from behind them because they're sitting with a window behind them, and then it's their dark silhouette. Especially now when we crave talking to people because we only have to talk to our spouses or our children, it's nice to see a face and a smile. So your lesson is the very basic one, if you can get all the settings right, is how you have your home theater set up.
Mm-hmm. I have a question for you, just regarding using Zoom on a laptop versus an iPad versus an iPhone or a cell phone. I noticed using it on a computer, desktop or a laptop is easier to navigate.
Yes.
Versus using it on an iPad. And I have someone that has been on a number of our webinar, or not webinars, but Zoom meetings, and they have a cell phone, and it's just, they're constantly doing this. And so I eventually hid the person so that we couldn't see it. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Okay, that goes back to etiquette. And I think that everyone needs to understand, and we've all been on the Zoom meeting where there's 2 people arguing about what they can see, what they can't see, if they can be heard, that is distracting to everyone. The same thing with your phone. You may want to see everything, but you need to understand how people see you, so you may need to turn your video off. I use my iPad when I'm attending some type of meeting, like I have a yoga class I do twice a day, that they do them online. I use my iPad because I only need to see them. I don't need to interact. I don't need to talk. So you have to decide if you're presenting, you do need to be on a desktop of some type. And you always have more functionality on a desktop than you have on a tablet or an iPad, because they're apps that they put on there and they're stripped down. Did that answer your question? And it is.
It
The
did,
host
yeah.
has some responsibility to knowing that that person's distractive, and by hiding their video. You know, you can send them a private chat or something, but yeah, just getting rid of them.
Yeah, and I will just add that I think if you're on a Zoom meeting call, not a webinar, you can't be seen. The Zoom meeting,
You are
your
falling in and
video
out.
shown, your picture shown. Am I falling in and out?
Yeah,
It's
so if you could repeat that question, it would be great.
Yeah, so this is actually my question or my comment. I think that if you are on a Zoom meeting, it's really important to show your video. I personally believe that, and I talked to a couple of other presenters that are on meetings, not webinars. And here's a couple of reasons why I think so. It's much easier to be able to or feel comfortable offering networking to someone if you can see them versus not see them. And I take the position that if someone is not showing their video, you know, are they really in tune to the conversation that is going on? So I think it's a personal choice, obviously, but I always, when I am introducing a presenter on one of our CNC events, I usually go around and just talk about lighting a little bit and make sure everyone is, you know, their video looks good. But I also talk about the importance of really showing yourself, because if you were in person, if we weren't doing these things virtual, you would be in person. So
I absolutely agree. Presentation is important.
It is.
Whether you're a host or whether you're attending or however you're doing it, presentation is important.
Yeah.
Just so you know,
now,
I have my yoga pants and flip-flops on, just like everyone else.
Yes. I just saw something actually where someone posted a meme that they just washed all the laundry or the pajamas so that their families, you know, ready to go for this week.
Yeah.
So everybody's wearing their PJs. Al, that's a good point. Yesterday we were on a call, and one of the folks who was on the call said that they hid their screen because they were worried about their privacy being stolen. Can you again elaborate on that?
So
I didn't understand that so much.
So if you're dialing in from a phone, it shows your phone number. So that's certainly something you should be cognizant of. You know, it's not going to show a picture unless you're doing the video. That's where you should rename yourself right away, so it doesn't show your phone number, it shows your name. So yes, that right there would be a privacy issue. Other than that, all you see is the person's name. So yeah, and if you don't want people to see your home, you can do a virtual background. So there's just, I don't think they can do anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to networking. If you're trying to make connections, it's going to be much more difficult for someone to make a connection for someone who they can't see.
Yes.
What is the good setup for camera height? Sometimes you look too close. Should it be looking down at you?
Again, that's presentation. My new one is set up on top. I can raise and lower my desk, so if I want to be taller, I can do this. Or if I want or I can move that, or you can move back, so it changes your perspective of the camera. Again, that goes back to setting it up and where you're doing it. Where your camera is also reflects how they see that virtual background. If I tilt it a
Yeah.
little bit, you can see different things. So it's that instant meeting where you're testing all your settings and how you want to be perceived.
Yeah. Let's see. So we can't set up the virtual background as a default. We must set it up for each meeting.
No, my virtual background, once it's set in my video, always comes up.
Okay. Can you do a virtual background as an attendee?
For a meeting, yes.
You can, yeah.
You can also do, I believe, a video as a virtual background, like if you're sitting on a beach and the waves are coming in. I have not done that, but I was on a meeting where someone had that.
Can you review a list of attendees after the event is done? Yes.
If you required registration. If you just sent it out to everyone and you don't have a list, then you don't have it. So requiring that registration and having them sign up, you can review it. You can download a CSV file of it and bring it into Excel so you have their information.
Right. Nancy, so Nancy asked, set up in your camera, or is there a video setting in settings? I'm assuming this is regarding.
It's when you're live, that's when you can address your video settings.
Yeah. A book under your laptop to raise or lower your camera. Yeah, that's
absolutely. You can move your camera to wherever you want it to be. When I used to have my screen in front of my closet and have to move everything, I had a whole stack of books and I had to move it forward and back so it centered on the green screen, and then I had to decide where it fit for me. So absolutely. You know, you've all seen the one where you've seen just the person's forehead. So yes, it's testing what you have.
Yeah. Nancy, okay. Were you going to have another beginner class, or is there a recording? And I missed the first one. We will be having another beginner class.
If you go to Weiskopf Consulting and go to the education page, I have 2 more set up for next week with Giving DuPage on Tuesday and Thursday. One is a beginner, one is an advanced.
Next week?
Yes.
Okay.
The 21st and the 23rd.
Okay, and that's Giving DuPage website?
It's on my website. She might have it on her website also, and she has sent out invitations, but I have them posted on my education page. If you go down a little bit, it tells about the events I'm giving.
Okay. And so I think you have a slide with your information that we can post up at the end, or we can put that in the chat. Also in the Career Networking Center, if you go to our website, any workshops that we are going to be offering will be listed on our calendar. Or if you send us an email, actually I'll put it in the chat, to CNC at careernetworkingcenter.org. You will get our weekly newsletter that comes out on Fridays that will have all of the upcoming events that we do. And there's Virginia's information.
Well, my email is not on this slide. It's virginia@weiskopfconsulting.com.
Okay. And we can put that in the chat too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me see here. Let's see, anything else? I'm giving my first Zoom webinar next week. You will make me look knowledgeable. This has been very helpful. Thank you.
I want to tell you to use a co-host, because if you're distracted by all the things you're doing, like it's great because Kim can manage the chat or manage the Q&A while I do the presentation. So don't be afraid to have someone help you.
Anything else you want to add, Virginia? I'm going to send them via.
No, thank you so much for coming. I hope you learned a lot. Please feel free to send me questions if I didn't answer something specifically for you, and I will try to answer that. Again, next week on the 21st and the 23rd, we're repeating basics and advanced. And this will be uploaded to my YouTube site and pulled into my website on the education page probably tomorrow. It won't get done today because I'll have to edit it. But thank you so much for coming.
Okay. Yeah, let me make sure. All right. Any more questions? If not, we are going to close this out. Thank you all so much. If you take a look in the chat, you will see Virginia's email, the CNC's email, and Giving DuPage. I don't have their website information exactly, but that's you can go to their website or to Virginia's website to look for the information for next week. All right. Thank you, everyone.